back to Killer Stories. I'm your host, Bobby Holmes. Last week's story was relatively mild in comparison to some of the cases I've covered lately. But this week, I've got another wild one for you. Y'all have been making it easy for me by sending in story suggestions. Each week, I usually just pick one off of that list. But today's case is one that really stuck out to me when I first heard it watching Bailey Sarian on Murder, Mystery, and Makeup Mondays. She is a YouTuber who tells a true crime story while doing her makeup, and it's amazing. She's so down to earth and fun to watch. Anyways, I heard her cover this case, and I remember scooching closer to the screen and listening to her in disbelief. I'm talking about the killing of Tim McLean, also known as the Greyhound Bus Murder. This story is so incredibly sad. It's another one where mental illness went untreated and ended in tragedy. Since we are on the topic, I just wanted to talk about a recent review on Apple Podcasts where someone called me insensitive. In episode 27, Dina Schlosser suffered from postpartum psychosis and refused to take her medication due to her religion, leading to the murder of her infant daughter. The person who wrote this review said that I lacked sympathy for sufferers and didn't discuss how to prevent similar incidents. First and foremost, this is a true crime podcast, not a self-help podcast. I do believe it's very important to take care of your health, both physically and mentally. If you're diagnosed with a mental disorder, you should work with your doctor to decide the best treatment. I'm not a professional, and it would be inappropriate for me to give advice on how to treat your mental disorder. Having said that, if you or someone you know is having suicidal thoughts, thoughts of harming others, or voices in your head, please don't hesitate or be embarrassed to reach out for help. There's a suicide prevention hotline, 1-800-273-TALK. Or if you're having a mental health crisis, you can text the word HOME to 741-741. Okay, now I feel like I did my mental health due diligence. Now on to today's story. I'm going to start by talking about the victim, 22-year-old Tim McLean. He was born on October 3rd, 1985, in a small town just outside of Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada. Friends and family describe him as a free spirit. He easily made friends with strangers and could get along with just about anybody. Because of his free-spirited nature, an opportunity to work in a traveling carnival appealed to him. He was able to meet new people and explore new locations every week through the summer. Tim's girlfriend Colleen had recently found out that she was pregnant. Despite this, she was excited for the chance Tim had to explore the country for a month or two. After traveling from city to city, Tim decided that Edmonton, the capital of Alberta, would be his last stop. His friends offered to buy him a plane ticket home so he could get back to Colleen, but he politely declined and took the Greyhound bus as planned. July 30th, 2008, at 12 p.m., Greyhound bus number 1170 left Edmonton, Alberta, eastbound to Winnipeg, Manitoba. It was a 24-hour journey. Tim walked to the back of the bus, taking the window seat on the left side, second row from the back, next to the restroom. He put on his headphones and leaned his head against the window. In the meantime, Vincent Li, a Chinese immigrant, was waiting at the Erickson bus stop. A little background on Vincent. When Vincent lived in China, he earned a degree in computer science from the Wuhan Institute of Technology. He and his wife moved to Canada in 2001 in search of a better life. Vincent became a Canadian citizen in 2006. Unfortunately, he only knew very broken English and was not able to land a job in that field. Instead, he worked in a variety of jobs like McDonald's, Meatland Food, and most recently, Walmart. His wife, Anna, worked as a waitress. Vincent had a really hard time communicating due to the language barrier. His manager at Walmart fired him after a heated argument with a coworker. One of my sources stated that Vincent was diagnosed with schizophrenia in 2005, but I don't think he had an actual diagnosis. Friends and family knew he had mental issues. He would disappear for days at a time, taking random bus trips. He often rambled to himself. But people didn't think too much of that given the frustration he would endure from the language barrier. Police once picked him up while walking down the highway. He said God ordered him to follow the sun. He was hospitalized on several occasions, but from my understanding, was never diagnosed with anything or given medical treatment. Vincent felt he was chosen by God to defeat aliens. After being fired from Walmart, he traveled around in search of the alien enemies. As we will find out later, Vincent did have schizophrenia. Through the years, Vincent and his wife drifted apart. They ended up getting a divorce. After being fired, he asked for time off from his second job as a newspaper delivery man. He said that he needed to travel to Winnipeg for a job interview. I'm not sure if this trip was actually for an interview or if he was just on an alien hunting mission. Anna found a note that was left for her by Vincent. It said, "I'm gone. Don't look for me. I wish you were happy." July 29th, Vincent left Edmonton on a Greyhound bus and got off at the Erickson bus stop, where he sat and sat. He placed a written sign in front of his luggage that said, "Laptop for sale, $600 or best offer." Vincent remained there sitting upright and wide-eyed well into the day of July 30th. He never closed his eyes to rest or showed any emotion for that matter. He ended up selling his laptop to a teenager for $60. Man, he must have been desperate for cash because that's quite the lowball offer. Witnesses say that Vincent seemed detached and stood out as odd while waiting at the bus stop. Around 6:55 p.m., bus number 1170 stopped in Erickson and Vincent Li boarded. He sat down near the front. At the next rest stop, everyone got off the bus to stretch their legs. Vincent quickly smoked a cigarette and got back on the bus. This was the last leg of the bus ride. Tim had sent his father a text message asking if he was okay to stay at their place that night. He said, of course it was okay, and he would see him soon. This time, when Vincent boarded the bus, for whatever reason, he walked towards the back and spotted Tim. The aisle seat next to him was vacant. Tim looked up and made eye contact. He patted the seat next to him as to say, "You're welcome to sit here." Tim seemed like such a genuinely nice person. If I was on the bus and there was a vacant seat next to me, I would probably avoid eye contact at all costs and just hope that no one sat next to me. It was late and Tim was tired. Even though he loved meeting new people, he wasn't up for conversation. He put on his headphones and quickly drifted off to sleep. The voices in Vincent's head were telling him this was the guy. Tim was his alien. God was telling him to annihilate Tim. Vincent felt he needed to strike first before Tim tried to kill him. Not long after the bus had departed from their rest stop, Vincent pulled out a large knife and plunged it into Tim's neck. Every passenger on the bus snapped awake when they heard his spine-chilling scream. Many passengers still have PTSD and hear Tim scream in their nightmares. Vincent coldly continued to stab Tim in the neck and chest over and over without any emotion. It was like a robot committing murder. Tim tried to fight back, but he was severely injured and wasn't able to overpower Vincent. Typically with a stabbing, especially where the victim was stabbed upward of 60 times, the murder is a crime of passion, pure rage and emotion. In this instance, it was more like a brainwashed soldier following orders to kill. All the passengers jumped up and pushed their way to the front of the bus, screaming for the driver to pull over. All the passengers exited the Greyhound except for Vincent and Tim. A few of the passengers attempted to save Tim, but it was too late. His screams stopped, and realistically, there was way too much blood for Tim to still be alive. As the driver and other passengers awaited police and EMS to arrive, Vincent kept cutting. He decapitated Tim and held his head up while pacing the aisle. The passengers were in disbelief. Many of them became physically ill and vomited at the sight of Tim's head. Concerned that Vincent may try to make a run for it, the driver engaged the emergency immobilizer on the bus, which is a good thing because he did try to flee. When he realized the bus wasn't going to start, he tried to stab his way through the bus door. Luckily, a group of male passengers armed themselves with hammers and crowbars and stood by the door. Vincent quickly gave up on that idea. He walked to the back and continued to mutilate Tim's body. He cut off his ears, nose, and tongue, placing them into a plastic bag and then into his pocket. He cut open Tim's chest cavity. The passengers watching from outside could see Vincent hold up portions of Tim's body. They saw him sniff the body parts and then consume them, licking the blood from his fingers. By 9 p.m., police and a tactical team surrounded the bus. They tried to get Vincent to calmly exit the bus on his own, but in response, he shouted, quote, "I have to stay on the bus forever." For 4.5 hours, Vincent walked up and down the aisle of the bus, occasionally stopping to further mutilate Tim's body. He cut off body parts and placed them into plastic bags. Around 1:30 a.m., Vincent broke a window in an attempt to escape, as if no one would notice. But police tased him and they were able to get him in handcuffs. While being detained, Vincent said, quote, "I'm sorry, I'm guilty, please kill me." Autopsies show that Tim was missing his eyeballs and a portion of his heart, presumably eaten by Vincent. Many of the passengers were covered in blood that spattered from Tim's neck. They were taken to a local Walmart and provided with clean clothing. After giving witness statements to police, another bus arrived to finish the journey to Winnipeg. I can only imagine the chilling silence the rest of that bus ride. When Tim's father, Tim McLean Sr., was told about what happened to his son, he frantically tried to reach his wife, who was on an Alaskan cruise at the time. They were in complete shock that something like this could happen to their son. Greyhound was getting slammed for this incident. They had an advertisement slogan that read, "There's a reason you've never heard of bus rage." They immediately pulled the ad following Tim's murder. A couple of passengers from bus number 1170 sued Greyhound because of the mental distress that witnessing the murder caused them. The lawsuit was dropped because, well, I don't think that's something you can sue for. 10 years after the murder, Tim's family filed a $150,000 lawsuit against Greyhound, the Attorney General of Canada, and Vincent Li. On what grounds exactly, I'm not sure. The case is still open. PETA, and this is so incredibly insensitive, PETA planned to run an advertisement comparing the consumption of animals to the cannibalism of Tim McLean. They sent their ad to the Portage Daily Graphic. Ultimately, they made the smart decision not to run it. The trial for Tim McLean's murder began March 3, 2009. Vincent Li's charge was second-degree murder. To refresh your memories, first-degree murder is willful and premeditated. Second-degree murder is still an intentional killing, but not premeditated. But let me ask you something. Did Vincent Li have a large knife in his backpack? Yes. He may not have had Tim McLean specifically in mind when he got on that bus, but I do think he had planned to kill. Vincent Li's defense was pleading not criminally responsible on account of mental disorder. Canada is lenient with punishment when it comes to crimes committed by the mentally unstable. Psychiatrists confirmed that Vincent was schizophrenic, and this diagnosis was what caused him to kill Tim McLean. He truly believed that Tim was a threat, and the voice of God told him he must kill him. The judge ruled that he was not criminally responsible for the murder. Vincent Li was sent to Selkirk Mental Health Center. He stayed there for 7 years. He was a model prisoner, or patient, not sure what the correct term in this instance. He was allowed to move into a group home. The rules were to take his medications and see a therapist. In 1999, Canadian Supreme Court decided that if a person doesn't pose a significant threat to public safety, they must be given a complete discharge. They believed that Vincent Li, who now goes by Will Lee Baker, was not a threat as long as he was taking his medications. Chris Somerville, CEO of Schizophrenia Society of Canada, said that he believes recovery, rehabilitation, and redemption are possible for people with schizophrenia. He was the one who worked side by side with Vincent for 8 years. He said he is confident that he'll be able to manage his illness effectively. On the other side of things, Matt Logan, a former Royal Canadian Mounted Police officer and forensic psychologist, had major concerns. Yes, Vincent, or Will, did great in the mental health facility and group home. He had structure and was overseen taking his medications. A complete discharge means he is free to live his life without regulations, meaning he's on his own to seek professional help and make sure that he takes his own medications. I take a couple of medications and I have to set a damn alarm on my phone or I forget to take them. What if he forgets to take it or feels better and starts slacking like so many stories I've covered in the past? I understand that he's not criminally responsible due to an undiagnosed mental disorder. I don't believe he should be in prison. But he did murder someone, brutally. And he was the cause of PTSD for dozens of passengers and first responders that day. In fact, Corporal Ken Barker of the RPMC was one of the first on the crime scene. In July of 2014, he committed suicide. Ken had been suffering from a severe case of post-traumatic stress disorder. Even with proper treatment, should Will Lee Baker be kept in the mental facility long term? That has been the moral debate in Canada regarding this case. Many Canadians were fearful when the news broke of Will Baker's release, but no one was more upset than Tim McLean's mother, Carol. The day she heard the news, she had no comment on his release. But as time went on, she opened up. Carol said, quote, "A killer is a killer. If you take a life, you forfeit freedom for the rest of your life. The only thing that should change with a mentally ill killer is that they should serve their sentence in a place where they can also receive treatment," unquote. Carol started a petition to change Canada's law of being not criminally responsible. However, she gave up on the petition after 5 years. She only had 1,200 signatures to try and pass Tim's law. Not nearly enough. Carol and Tim McLean Sr. have separated due to the distress Tim Jr.'s death has caused in their marriage. So many somber endings to this story. It's sad how many people were affected by one man's untreated mental illness. I can't help but wonder what happened when he was previously hospitalized. My understanding is that he was there due to his mental health. Why was he not given a mental health evaluation, a diagnosis, treatment? The fact is, Vincent Li, aka Will Lee Baker, is a free man. I hope to God he truly understands the importance of properly treating his schizophrenia and the risk it poses if he relapses. I hope you're all enjoying Killer Stories. Some of you may have noticed that I switched hosting sites. I was with Buzzsprout and now I'm taking advantage of the monetization that's available through Spreaker. There will be an advertisement at the beginning and at the end of each episode, and some of the longer ones will have a mid-roll ad. I know ads are annoying, but it's how us podcasters are able to make an extra buck. If you have my Linktree, it's always up to date, and it now has my Spreaker page under the episode tab. The link is also listed in my show notes, as well as the source material for today's episode. You can follow me on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok at Killer Stories Podcast and Twitter at Killer Stories PC. Thank you so much for continuing to send those story suggestions to KillerStoriesPodcast@gmail.com. I love hearing from my listeners. Until next time, this has been a Killer Story.